Okay, let me pull up my notes. So last week we started talking about running your business remotely. And we talked about managing your time and adjusting yourself and controlling yourself and increasing your productivity and making adjustments for you personally. Today, I want to talk about managing your team. And so, you guys, your team can look like a lot of different things. You don't necessarily have to have employees, right? Your team can be contractors. It can be people who are doing different jobs for you, right? For those of you, everyone's teams look different. So we want to talk about how we manage our teams in this new environment. And for some of us, we may or may not have already had some of the tools in place that we're going to need. And for others, we may be starting from scratch. And at this point, chances are that a lot of you are already making adjustments and accommodating because you had to. You've been working remotely for a while. So some of these things you probably have already implemented that we're going to talk about. But maybe there'll be some tips and tricks that help you implement better, or things that you didn't think about. Or for a lot of us, we're still adjusting. We've changed over to remote on what we had to, but we're still not feeling the same as when we were working in person, right? And we're not going to, okay? It's not going to be the same, but we can try to replicate as much of our day and many of our processes as possible in hopes that we can recreate that in-office feeling as much as we can. So first, when we're learning about and we're transitioning to managing our team and running our business remotely, the first thing we've got to do is utilize technology. All right. So apps that you may or may not have already been using pre-quarantine, right, are going to come into play hardcore now that we are 100% remote. And so there are three bases that you need to cover. And I'll give you some suggestions of different apps that will satisfy this need. And I'll tell you what we use as well. And the reason I'll tell you what we use is because as we go through the rest of the training, I'll reference these things and then you'll know, okay, she said Slack. That means she's talking about a communication tool. And here's all the other things she said I could use as a communication tool. All right. So first, the first of the three bases we want to cover in technology is communication. So that's going to be Slack, Hangout Chat, Chanty, Microsoft Teams, Rocket.chat, Discord, Mattermost, Flock, River or River. I think it's called River, but some people I've heard it say River, but I think it's River. I think it's a fun way to spell river. Anyway, these are all different tools that you can use to communicate with your team. Being able to communicate with your team is important because when you're in an office, right, when you're in person, you guys are communicating all the time. You know, when you're walking past each other, you can just jot over to someone's desk. Maybe you can just stand up and see your cubicle mate. Whatever it is, that communication is ongoing. So you need a tool that allows you to keep that communication and the ability to communicate ongoing throughout the day in place. So again, we use Slack. We loved it. We love it. We've actually used it for years, since long before, since I bought the business. So for 3 years, we've used Slack, even when we're in office. So the second base you need to cover when you're utilizing technology is the interaction piece. So we use Zoom. There's also Google Hangouts, Microsoft Teams again, GoToMeeting is a popular one, Uber Conference and Flock are other ones I've heard of. But what you're looking for here is something that offers that face-to-face interaction with multiple people at a time so that you can see your whole team at once and you guys can interact together. Okay. And the third base you need to cover when you're utilizing technology is project management. So you guys, when you're in person, you should still probably you should always have project management, a system in place, but when you're in person, it might look different. So we've been paperless for a while, meaning we've been able to use it. We've been using project management online in an application for a while, but back in the day, okay, so we do taxes, right? So we'd have a tax return and we get a folder, a client folder. Let's say it was John Smith. So John Smith would mail his stuff in and it'd go in a folder and it'd go in a tray that said receive. And that was a team member's, whoever was responsible knew that this had to be put into the system. And then it would go into this drawer. And the drawer meant those are the returns that are in that we need to work on. So when we needed to, so out of the at the time, 5 people on the team, when we needed a new project, we'd go into the drawer, we'd pull the front folder out because that's the next one in line, and we'd go work on it. And then when we were done working on it, we would put it in a tray for whoever was responsible for reviewing it. And that was their trigger that they had a task of reviewing a tax return. When they were done, it went into a tray that said to be or completed. And that was whoever was responsible for sending it out to the client. That was their cue that the project was ready to be sent out. So it was all very manual. And it was possible to do that because we were all in the same place. Well, we have moved on from that because we're not paper based anymore anyway. But because we'd already moved away from that type of project management format, going remote was a little easier for us. But you need something in place to manage your project and know where everything is at a given time. Trello is a great free option. Asana is another popular one. Monday.com, I just started using this not with my tax team, but with my marketing and digital online course team. So we just started using Monday.com. I love it. There's also Smartsheet, HubSpot, Wrike. You just need something that tracks who's responsible for completing what and when, and something that you can look at any given time. So those are the three bases that you want to cover in terms of utilizing technology. Something for communication, something for interaction, and something for project management. Okay, so now we're going to go to step 2 or item 2, which is my favorite. And that is to recreate your physical workday virtually. And this will make a lot more sense once I start going through the steps. All right, so you're going to ask yourself, what can you do virtually to mirror your days pre-quarantine? And the reason this is important, guys, is because the more consistency you can bring to your team's workday, the more efficient they're going to be, the more engaged they're going to be, the more on focus and on track they're going to be. So what can you do virtually to mirror your days pre-quarantine? So for one thing you can do is do a morning hello. Say hi every single morning. Okay, I mean it, every single day. Via Slack or Messenger, whatever you use. When we talked about communication tools in part 1, whatever communication tool you're using with your team, use it to say hi to your team every morning. That not only just says hi, but it gives your team the message that you're here and you're available and you're showing up. I'm going to be honest, I'm a work in progress on this one. I'm good at doing it every day. I just don't always do it right away. My goal is I do my own morning routine, right? And then as soon as I'm ready to work and I'm ready to get into my workday, I want to be sending that hello, good morning message. And instead, I usually work for about an hour. And then I'm like, I forgot to send that. So hi, how are you? Oh, by the way, I need this stuff. So I'm a work in progress, but it's definitely something that is important to set that tone for the day, to say, my day has started. I am here for you. The next step in recreating your physical workday virtually is to have a daily stand-up meeting. All right, so I know, like going back to pre-quarantine days, right? Meetings were the worst, right? But even if daily meetings weren't a part of your in-office routine, seeing your team in person multiple times a day, it was, right? You'd run into each other, you'd talk to each other. It was a normal part of the day. So a lot of teams I'm finding are showing to start their work days with a stand-up. But for us at LBA, we actually start our days at such different times. So the beginning of one person's day might end up being in the middle of someone else's like routine or meeting or call. So we do ours at the end of the day. We do ours at 3 p.m. in the afternoon because that's the end of some of our early risers' day. And for our later risers, it's like halfway or more through their day. So that's what works for us. But find a time that works for your team to have a daily stand-up. We have a Zoom. We use Zoom, but whatever you choose for your interaction piece from when we talked about technology, whatever you choose for that interaction that gives you that face-to-face, use that, have a daily stand-up meeting on the calendar. And we use this, and you're going to use this as a status update, a check-in, to see how work projects are going, to see if anyone needs help, sure. But it's also a chance to just catch up and shoot the breeze, you guys. For some on your team, this might be the only interaction they get with people outside their household during a day. So it is totally fine, and I think encouraged to include a lot of non-work chat. Oh, and the last thing in this recreating your physical workday virtually is to create what I read is called a virtual water cooler, and there are quotes. So what for us, this was the kitchen. But for whatever your office environment was, it's like, where did people congregate when they needed a break from work to just chat? So for us, it was the kitchen. That's when maybe I was making coffee and Lindsay was getting water or Carrie was making food, whatever. And when we were in there at the same time, we just kind of chat, right? So create something like that for your team. So for us, it's a Slack channel, okay? It's called Female Chit Chat. And it's just where we go, where we stick funny things to make each other laugh. It's nice because if we're working and then when I'm like, oh, I need to go check some Slacks, there's a nice little like giggle or laugh or something sitting there waiting for me. All right, so a part of the water cooler experience is understanding as the boss or the manager, the importance of the casual shooting the breeze, not talking about work, focus, or the intention of what this is serving, right? That's the purpose it's serving, is to give people a place to unwind, to just talk. So as the owner, it's important to keep the mindset that any time that's spent in this virtual water cooler, I don't like that name, but I don't know, but I couldn't think of a better one. So any time spent in this fun chat is something to be celebrated, not worried over. Okay. In a time when things are hard, people, are scared, it's strange, it's weird, it's unfamiliar, a place to joke and be carefree is so important. All right. And you can provide that for your team. So all of these tips are going to help you stay connected with your team and maintain some sense of consistency, which are both key components of getting through and managing in this environment when we're so disconnected from one another. Keeping consistency and keeping connection. Those are your two goals. So before I get to the third, I see Karen's here. Hi, Karen. So instead of our typical second Tuesday coffee catch up, we have also been adding weekly talk time for everyone. That's perfect, Karen. That's exactly. And you guys, everything's going to look different. Maybe you meet once a day. Maybe you meet a couple times a day. I know at the Hollis Co, they have 2 dance breaks a day, and then they have a team meeting. So they are meeting 3 times a day. It's all going to be what your team needs. So Sarah says the Hollis Co is having circle time and talking about feeling per day. Yes, I saw that. And funny you should say that. So this morning on the Start Today morning show, Dave said they have circle time, and he goes, it ends up being kind of like therapy. And that's what our Zoom time ends up being in the afternoon. There are some days where we get on at 3, we chat about work, and we're done by 3:30. Right. But there are other days, like last night, we were on for almost an hour, and I don't even think we talked about work. We talked about parenting and the struggles and TV shows we were watching and just all the things. And last night, I'll be honest with you guys real quick. So our team call yesterday started late because I was having a breakdown with my daughter, and I ended up jumping on our team call in tears and trying to hide it, but I don't hide my emotion very well. I don't know about you guys, but like for me, if I'm on the verge of tears, it just takes someone hugging me or asking me what's wrong for me to the waterworks to start. And that's where it was yesterday. I got on and Lindsay was just like, what's wrong? And I was like, but yeah, it was a therapeutic time. I told them what was going on, what what was happening. They gave me some advice, and it was helpful. And that goes back to, for us, that's our culture. That's how it is when we're in office. And that is definitely a piece that we've been missing, is just that camaraderie. So for us, these team meetings are key. So Greer says, oh, love today's background. It's the background of the week. I'll change it next week. Travis bought me another new fun pop culture one that I'll debut next week. So, all right, let me get back to number 3, which is the last one, but it's long. Why is it so long? We'll find out. So you like how I created this training and I don't remember what I put in it? I'm good at this. So number 3 is create and communicate your virtual rules. So ask yourself, what are your expectations of your team when it comes to managing their time and how they connect with one another? So many of the strategies we've talked about above are going to overflow, but let's chat about some others. Okay, so how do you expect your team to communicate with you? And the second part of that is, do they know that is how you expect them to communicate? All right, so you need to think about, how do you want your team chatting with you, and then make sure you communicate it. All right, so a few suggestions for that. I suggest you set your office hours and be available during the times your team needs you. In this world of working remote, it also gives us the freedom to move our office or our work hours around, right? If we're night owls, we might work late. If we're morning people, we might work early. But make sure at least part of your day you're available during the time your team is working. This also goes back, we talked about the morning hello from number 1. So let your team know you're here and ready for them. For me, when I do my morning hello, I also let my team know when I'll be making my team rounds for the day. So let me tell you what that means. So when we were in person, I would make team rounds 3 times a day. That meant I would go to each employee, each teammate, and ask what they needed, if they needed help with anything. So they knew that that was the time that if they were stuck on a question or they needed help responding to a client or figuring something out, those are the times during the day that I would go out and help them. And that was a type of batch working for us, you guys, because without this team round, like without having set times, they were coming in and just, interrupting my day, or I would go to the restroom and be like, oh, well, I'm up. Let me see. You said you needed help with something, and then interrupting what they were doing and decreasing both of our productivity levels, right? Because either I was interrupting their day or they were interrupting what I was doing. There were no boundaries. So now we do team rounds. And so now that we're remote, I just do them during Slack. I do them via Slack, So in the morning, I'll say, hey, I'm doing my rounds at 10 and 1 today. And then they know that anything they put in the Slack channel may not be addressed till 10 o'clock or 1 o'clock, because that's when I'm going to attend to them. Know that I do check my Slacks and I get to them because I have breaks and I'll go in between, but that's how they know that at 10 o'clock, I need to be ready with my questions this morning for Brie, because that's when she's making rounds. Otherwise, I got to wait till 1 o'clock. All right. So it also helps them build their schedule for the day, right? Because they're not going, oh my God, I don't know when Brie's going to make her rounds. Do I wait for this question and hope she does it soon? Or should I go to something else? And, they don't have that uncertainty. They know when I'm coming and they know to be ready. On that same note, I also let my team know when I'm specifically not going to be available. Because like I said, even though I've set my team rounds above, I typically have times between tasks or breaks to answer the quick questions and the quick Slacks. But I want them to know, like, hey, there's this block of time today where I am unavailable. So it's just as important to let them know when you won't be online and available. So they're not sitting there waiting for your response, or, maybe she will get back to me early on this, or, maybe if I mark it urgent, because my team also knows that if they say urgent, I will get to it, right? Or if they know ways to get a hold of me if it's important. But so I need to tell them when I absolutely am not available. We also use Google Calendars. We live by it, and I put every single appointment on there. That way, if I don't get back to them, they can look at the calendar and be like, oh, that's why. I said I included in my Slack. So for now, that would be like, oh, hey guys, I have an all-day training today, so I don't know how available I'm going to be. Maybe you're homeschooling, right? So you need to let your team know when you're unavailable because you're being a teacher. That's important to know. I need to know that between the hours of 11 and 1, I probably won't be able to get a hold of you because you're teaching little Johnny long division. This is also where you're going to set your closed door office hours. All right. And closed door office hours, this is not a remote thing. This is a management thing. You should always have some sort of indication, something that lets your team know I cannot be interrupted for the next X amount of times or X amount of time. So and this is not an everyday thing, but if you have a big project that you have to get out the door and you need 3 hours to get it done, let your team know that. All right. Don't let them interrupt you. And then you're like, you blow up on them because you're like, I'm trying to work on something. Let them know ahead of time. Hey, I've blocked off 4 hours of my day this afternoon. I'm going to be uninterrupted. I'm turning everything off because I got to get this done. And then go do it. Time management. So what are your expectations for when and how much your team is working right now? And again, you got to let them know it. This is going to look different for everybody, especially right now. Okay. So for us, we still have work to do. There's still tax returns to do. There's tax planning coming up. We have other projects going on, but the workload's low. And it's low enough right now that we don't need to be, nor do I want my team working more than 8-hour days or 40 hours a week. And honestly, I'd be fine if they told me they were only going to work 30 hours. But they need to know that, right? They need to know that I'm okay with them decreasing their hours, especially in this time of uncertainty. So for us, normally April 15th is tax deadline, right? And then for the next month-ish, we're kind of like, we work, but very minimally. It's just get what needs to be done. Everything else can wait. And now April 15th didn't matter. Tax deadline is till July 15th. Well, my team's like, are we expected to work 80-hour work weeks till then? What is the expectation? I need to express to them what I expect them to do. And so last week, I suggested, I said, hey, I'm looking at the workload coming in and I feel like maybe it's the time to start taking Fridays off. We take Fridays off in the summer. So they were like, what? I'm like, unless you guys have something that I'm missing, I don't see any reason why we need to be working, 40 hours a week. And so they were like, okay. I was like, look at the workload, tell me if you agree, and let's go on. And this goes to every team is going to be different. Okay. So for my team dynamic, my problem when I have it is not that they're slacking off or they're taking advantage of the system that I can't watch them every waking moment, right? My problem is that my team feels compelled to continue to work long hours because they have outstanding projects and we need revenue and they just want to get things done. And so I know what you're thinking. Yeah, Bree, terrible problem to have, right? You have people who like to work. But hear me out, okay? When you strive to create a culture that values work-life balance, it's critical that I monitor this and ensure that my team isn't getting burned out, all right? I can say one thing, but if I'm doing another, so if I'm like, oh, it doesn't matter, but then I'm like, oh my God, we're so far behind on tax returns, what are we gonna do? So I need to set the tone that it is okay to work less, okay? It is okay to check out. But again, every business is gonna be different. And so you need to set expectations and you need to track progress. And this goes back to Trello, Asana, Monday.com, whatever you decide to use as your project management. Okay, I scrolled too far and I lost my place. There we go. Set expectations and track progress. We don't want to let out of sight be out of mind. Okay, we don't want to assume that because we're not hearing about all these problems that our team is fine. We need to make sure they're fine. We need to make sure they're chipping away at whatever their projects are, keeping on track. So that's why it's important to have a way to track your projects. And then you have to have grace. Okay, you've got to find the happy place in your business between being productive enough to keep the money flowing and keeping your team happy. I don't know what everyone else's culture is that's in here, but for us, like my employees are my number one asset. So I've got to take care of them. And so if they're burnt out and exhausted and panicked and worried about COVID and all this stuff, they're no good to me, right? They need to be calm. I mean, I need to help them be comfortable and calm and feel safe, but stuff still needs to get done, right? So you've got to find that happy medium. And like I said, this is going to look different for every business because some businesses are slower right now. Some businesses are just as busy, if not busier than they were in quarantine. And those are the ones I think are going to have the hardest time and need to do the most work to finding that balance. And the last thing I invite you guys to do I challenge you to do is invite your team into your creative collaboration and to contribute creatively. Okay, so as the owner or the boss or the manager are coming up with new ways to pivot your business and new ways to manage your team remotely, use your people as a tool. Okay, ask for input, ask for suggestions, ask for ideas. Okay, share your plans with your team as you're developing them as well. Okay, there's so many reasons for this. Okay, by sharing your plans, your vision, I can't think of another word for plans, but it's going to prepare your team for what's coming, okay? So they're not blindsided by this pivot you're taking. It creates excitement as well, you guys, and it increases the buy-in, okay? If they see your excitement and they know your why of why you're creating this new whatever it is you're doing, okay, it gets their buy-in, and you need their buy-in to keep them, their buy-in helps to keep them motivated and engaged. Sharing your plans with your team also allows them to contribute in ways that you might not have known they could, right? So for me, I'm going to use my VA who is on here, so that's not weird, but I'll use her as an example. So I am creating, oh my God, I'm going to spoil it. It's fine. I'm creating a workshop. I'm not supposed to debut it till my next 2:30 training, but surprise, I'm creating a workshop. And there was so many pieces of the technical stuff that I didn't know how to do. But instead of sitting back here and just trying to fuddle through it, I was like, hey, Sarah, this is what I'm doing. These are the pieces I need help with. She's like, done. And like some of the stuff, you guys, she already had experience in. She already knew, she already had an idea of how to do it. Had I not shared that, I would have been sitting over here putzing around, struggling through it, when the whole time Sarah had the tools to help me do it faster. And then finally, and for some of you, this might be important, some of you it might not, but by sharing your plans with your team as you're developing them, it provides you with a level of accountability. So I don't know if anyone in here has that problem, but for me, one of the hardest things I had a problem with, so when I was an employee, right, I was given these tasks, I was given deadlines, and I just did things. Well, as soon as I became an owner, and I was in charge, I had no guidance, right? I was like, I should do this, or maybe I should do this. And when I don't have a deadline. I don't know when it needs to be done. I'll just work on it as it goes. And it was such a mess. I created such a mess. But by now sharing my plans and my vision with my team, they now know what to expect. So if I tell them, hey guys, I'm launching a workshop next month, and they don't hear anything about it, and the month comes and goes, they're gonna be like, hey, what happened to that workshop you were working on? Like they're gonna be able to help hold me accountable. Some of you may want that, some of you may not need that, but that's where it is. All right, cool. So we are out of time, and it's 2:27. I'm gonna jump on over to my LBA page to do a training, but just to summarize, so managing your team involves utilizing technology, recreating your physical workday virtually, and creating and communicating your virtual rules. All right, and then a whole bunch of sub-steps in between all those, right? Because that's how I roll. All right, I'm going to quickly double check the comments. Oh, Karen says we have Thirsty Thursday coming tomorrow so we can grab a drink together. Last week was hot dog hangout. I love the themes. I think they will want to keep these going too. Perfect. Yeah, we on Friday so for us, we have, I said 3 o'clock every day, but it's not. On Fridays, it's 4 because we completely end our day and we have a cocktail or a drink at our team meeting, and we unwind together. So I love it, Karen. All right, you guys. So I'm going to jump over to LBA. If you're interested, we're talking about personal taxes over there, and we're talking about things you guys may or may not have already heard of. But if you need a recap or you want a summary and updates, talking about your taxes in terms of we have a new deadline, which you guys know about, what that means. We're talking about something else the stimulus payment, and going into a little depth on that now that they've actually started being issued, and unemployment, because that started rolling out. We've started coming across a lot of state issues, so we're going to address those. And then I have a big announcement at the end that if you want to hear it, you should come over, even though I kind of already spilled it, but I'll give you a little more details. All right, I'll see you over there, hopefully. Bye, guys.